The human fleet arrived at Unity Station 3 weeks after the destruction of the Veltharis. The massive orbital habitat served as the center of Council government, home to representatives from all 47 species. It hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and ancient, built over thousands of years. Admiral Kyungsu could have destroyed it in seconds. His weapons could crack it open and scatter the pieces across the system. Millions would die. The Council would be destroyed. But that was not why humanity had returned. Genocide was the Council's answer to problems. It would not be humanity's. President Yoonji broadcast from the flagship to every species in Council space. Her voice was calm, her words clear. We are not here for conquest. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. The Council committed genocide against humanity based on lies. That crime must be answered. But we will answer it with law, not with murder. The proposal was simple. Every Council member would stand trial for crimes against humanity. Not for the original genocide, since none of them had been alive 3,000 years ago, but for perpetuating the lie, for celebrating Earth's destruction, for profiting from human death. The trial would be public, fair, and judged by neutral observers. Some Council species accepted immediately. Others argued that internal Council matters should be handled internally. Kyungsu's response was to demonstrate a reality fracture weapon on an uninhabited moon, turning it to dust in seconds. The argument stopped. The trial lasted 6 months. Evidence was presented from both sides. Council representatives explained that they had believed the historical records were accurate. They claimed they did not know the Drethak had lied. They insisted the celebration of Earth's destruction was seen as honoring difficult, but necessary decisions. Human prosecutors, led by a lawyer named Bora, tore those arguments apart. She showed communications between Council members joking about the human problem being solved. She presented financial records showing how species profited from dividing Earth's territory. She played recordings of Council teachers telling children that humans were dangerous animals that needed to be put down. The verdict came from a panel of judges, representing species that had joined the Council after Earth's destruction. They had no stake in defending the old guard. Their decision was careful and nuanced. The current Council members were not guilty of ordering genocide, but they were guilty of maintaining a system that celebrated it. Guilty of erasing the truth. Guilty of moral cowardice, the sentence was equally careful. The Council would not be destroyed, but it would be reformed completely. The position of Supreme Arbitrator was abolished forever. No single being would ever again have power to order species erasure. Instead, decisions would be made by democratic vote, with every species having equal voice regardless of size or strength. Second, the Memorial Fleet would be created. 12 massive ships that would travel Council space forever, broadcasting the true story of Earth's fall. Every Council world would host them for 1 year. Every school would teach the truth about what happened. Humanity would never be forgotten again. Third, reparations would be paid in knowledge. Every species would share all scientific and cultural information freely. No more secrets, no more technological advantages used to dominate others. The galaxy would grow together or fall apart. Most Council species accepted the terms. They had seen human military power, and knew resistance was futile. But more than that, many were ashamed. The younger species especially, who had grown up believing the Council was noble and just. Learning the truth hurt, but the pain was necessary. The Vorath Confederacy refused. They were a militant species that believed strength was the only law that mattered. They saw human demands as weakness. While the trial was happening, they sent a stealth fleet to attack Sayhope, humanity's hidden homeworld. If they could destroy the human population center, maybe the war would end. The Vorath fleet was detected 3 light years from Sayhope. Human sensors refined by 3,000 years of paranoia found them easily. Admiral Daehyun took the defense fleet to intercept. He gave the Vorath one chance to surrender and turn back. The Vorath commander laughed at the offer. His fleet was strong, his warriors fierce. They would crush these human ghosts and remind the galaxy who really held power. Daehyun ordered his ships to target the Vorath homestar. Not the fleet, not their colonies, the star itself. A quantum beacon was placed in the heart of the sun, a device that could trigger a cascade reaction turning the star into a supernova. The technology was theoretical until that moment. Daehyun broadcast to the Vorath fleet and their homeworld. You came to murder our families, our children, our future. This beacon will detonate in 1 hour. Your star will die. Your worlds will burn. Every Vorath in your home system will be erased. You have 1 hour to evacuate millions of people, or you can withdraw your fleet, remove the beacon yourselves, and accept the Council's new terms. Choose. The Vorath commander called the bluff. He ordered his fleet to continue toward Sayhope. 30 minutes passed. 45. At 59 minutes, with 1 minute remaining, the Vorath Emperor himself contacted Daehyun and begged for mercy. The fleet turned back. The beacon was deactivated by Vorath scientists who thought they had been so clever, until they saw human technology working at the heart of their sun. The Confederacy accepted the Council's new terms without further argument. The message was clear to everyone watching. Humanity would not start fights, but they would end them absolutely. Back in Earth's solar system, something beautiful was happening. Drethak workers, supervised by human engineers, were rebuilding the homeworld. It was slow work. Planets do not heal quickly. But piece by piece, the scars were being erased. Hana walked on Earth's surface for the first time in her long life. She was ancient now, over 300 years old, kept alive by technology that had advanced beyond anything the Council possessed. The soil under her feet was fresh, manufactured in orbital factories and spread across dead continents. Around her, Drethak worked to recreate mountain ranges from historical data. Others were preparing ocean basins that would one day hold water again. The planet was still dead, still cold, but life was returning. It would take centuries, maybe millennia, but Earth would live again. Tears ran down Hana's face as she knelt and touched the soil. "We came home," she whispered. "We came home and we brought justice with us." 10 years after humanity's return, the Treaty of Two Skies was signed at Unity Station. Representatives from all species, including humanity, put their marks on the agreement. The Galactic Council was formally dissolved. In its place, the Galactic Forum was created, a true democracy where every species had equal voice and power. The treaty included provisions that would prevent another Earth. No species could be expelled without clear evidence of actual crimes, not just fears or accusations. Any decision to use military force required a 2/3 vote. And most importantly, genocide was classified as the ultimate crime, punishable by complete isolation from the galactic community. President Yunji gave a speech at the signing ceremony. She was old now too, having led humanity through its darkest and brightest hours. "We did not return seeking revenge. We returned seeking justice. Justice for the dead, justice for the survivors, and justice for the future. Today we have achieved that goal. Let Earth's story serve as a reminder to all species. Fear is not wisdom, power is not righteousness, and the universe belongs to all of us equally." The human fleet did not disband after the peace was signed. Instead, it became the Guardian Fleet patrolling the borders of known space. They watched the darkness between galaxies where humanity had hidden for 3,000 years. They made sure no species would ever need to flee into that darkness again. Commander Minho, the name passed down through generations honoring Earth's last defender, stood on the bridge of the Eternal Witness. He was young, barely 50, but he carried the weight of history in every action. His ship was the most advanced in the galaxy, combining human quantum technology with knowledge shared by all species. He looked out at the stars of the Milky Way and remembered the stories his grandmother had told him. Stories of Earth burning, stories of humans dying, stories of the long exile and the desperate survival. Those stories had shaped his entire civilization. But there were new stories now. Stories of justice achieved. Stories of peace built from the ashes of war. Stories of species learning to work together instead of tearing each other apart. The galaxy was changing, growing into something better. On Earth, children played in parks that had been dead rock a decade before. Water flowed in rivers that had boiled away millennia ago. Trees grew from soil that had been manufactured in space. It was not the original Earth, could never be what had been lost, but it was home. In schools across the galaxy, students learned about humanity's story. Not just the genocide and the revenge, but the survival and the mercy. They learned that justice was better than vengeance, that truth was stronger than lies, and that no species should ever be erased for the convenience of others. The memory fleet traveled from system to system, its 12 ships spreading the truth. Aliens watched holographic displays showing Earth's beauty and its destruction. Many wept. Some felt anger at their governments. The scout ship Whisper of Ashes entered the Milky Way through a region of space the Council had never properly mapped. Captain Tajin kept the ship running silent, all systems at minimum power. His crew of 50 were the first humans to return to their home galaxy in 3,000 years. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on everyone aboard. They spent the first month just observing. Modern Council space looked different from what the historical records showed. New species had joined. Others had gone extinct or left. The Council now controlled 47 different civilizations, spread across thousands of star systems. It was a massive empire built on the promise of peace and cooperation. Tajin found that promise was a lie. His sensors picked up Council peacekeepers bombarding a primitive world that had refused to join them. He watched as an entire species was integrated through force and threats. The Council presented themselves as benevolent protectors, but they ruled through fear dressed up as law. Intelligence Officer Nari worked day and night analyzing Council communications. She was brilliant at her job, finding patterns in the endless streams of data. What she discovered made her blood run cold with rage. Humanity was not remembered as victims. Council history called Earth's destruction a necessary intervention against a dangerous species. The official records claimed humans were violent, aggressive, and spreading too quickly. The Council had voted to stop humanity before they became a threat. It was painted as a difficult but correct decision. There was no mention of the false evidence, no mention of the Drethak Empire's lies, no mention that humans had been murdered for the crime of success. Worse still, Nari found tourist advertisements for Earth's solar system. The Drethak had turned it into a memorial park, showing off the ruins as proof of the Council's difficult but necessary work. Aliens paid money to walk through the remains of human cities and congratulate themselves on preventing a galactic war that would never have happened. Tajin made copies of everything and sent encrypted data packets back to the main fleet. Then he moved deeper into Council space, taking risks to gather more information. His ship was advanced enough that Council sensors simply did not see it. Humans had spent 3,000 years becoming invisible ghosts. The patrol ship Vigilance was making its routine rounds near the Perseus Arm when sensors detected something strange. A derelict vessel floating dead in space. Commander Kresh of the Council military ordered his crew to investigate. It might be salvage worth collecting. It might be refugees needing help. Either way, it was his duty to check. 20 Council soldiers boarded the derelict in full combat armor. Their weapons were ready, their shields active. They found nothing. Empty corridors. Dark rooms, no life signs. One soldier joked it must be a ghost ship. He stopped laughing when the doors sealed behind them and the lights came on. Sunho emerged from stealth with his strike team. The human soldiers moved like lightning, faster than the Council troops could react. Advanced combat implants gave them superhuman speed and strength. Their weapons fired rounds that ignored energy shields. In 30 seconds, all 20 Council soldiers were unconscious on the floor. The Council crew on the Vigilance realized something was wrong when their boarding team stopped responding. They tried to seal the airlocks, but human hackers had already taken control of the ship's systems. Sunho's team moved through the Vigilance like death itself, capturing the crew without killing anyone. When it was over, Sunho stood on the bridge and looked at Commander Kresh. The alien was terrified, his scales showing colors that meant fear in his species. Sunho almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then he remembered Earth burning and the pity disappeared. "Tell your Council," Sunho said clearly, "that humanity has returned. Tell them we remember everything. Tell them the debt will be paid." Then the human strike team vanished, taking the Vigilance's computer core with them. They left the crew alive, locked in their own ship with just enough supplies to survive until rescue arrived. Sunho wanted them to deliver the message. Fear spreads faster than any weapon. Over the next 6 months, the pattern repeated across Council space. Small outposts disappeared without sending distress signals. Supply convoys vanished between star systems. Mining stations went dark. The Council military, led by Admiral Kresh's superior, tried to find the cause. Pirates, maybe, or some new predator species. They ran investigation after investigation and found nothing. The truth was too impossible to believe. Humanity was supposed to be extinct, dead. Gone. The Council had made sure of it 3,000 years ago. There was no way humans could be behind these attacks. It had to be something else. Nari intercepted Council communications and could not stop laughing at their confusion. They were looking everywhere except the one place that made sense. The Council had erased humanity so completely from their thoughts that they could not imagine humans might have survived. Tajin decided it was time to make the truth clear. He positioned the Whisper of Ashes in neutral space where Council sensors would detect his ship. Then he broadcast a message on every frequency the Council used. A message that would be received on every Council world, every station, every ship. The message contained no words. Just images. Earth as it had been, beautiful and alive. Then the Council fleet arriving. The trial where lies were presented as truth. The vote to destroy an entire species. The battle where humans died fighting desperately. Earth burning. Cities melting. Oceans boiling. Children dying in the streets. The final message from Admiral Hyunwoo, promising that survivors would return. After 10 minutes of images, a single sentence appeared in perfect galactic standard. "We have returned. Payment is due." The message spread through Council space like wildfire. Some species denied it was real. Others panicked. The younger species who had joined the Council after Earth's destruction demanded answers. Why had they never been told about this? Why was genocide presented as necessary intervention? The Council government tried to contain the damage. They claimed the message was propaganda from an enemy trying to divide them. They insisted humanity was extinct and this was some kind of trick. But doubt had been planted. Questions were being asked, and the disappearances kept happening. On the Drethak homeworld, the Emperor received a personal message. It was from Tajin, sent directly to the Imperial Palace bypassing all security. The message was simple and terrifying. "You built monuments to our murder. You charged admission to our graves. Now we are coming for you. Prepare yourself." The Emperor immediately ordered his military to full alert. The Drethak controlled a dozen star systems and had one of the strongest fleets in Council space. Surely they could defend against whatever primitive survivors might exist. They had crushed humanity once. They could do it again. What the Emperor did not know was that the human main fleet was already moving. Hundreds of Revenant warships were crossing the galaxy using quantum fold drives, jumping through reality itself to avoid Council sensors. They were not coming to negotiate. Not coming to talk. They were coming to deliver justice. Admiral Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the image of the Drethak homeworld on the screen. This was the species that had lied to the Council. That had demanded Earth's destruction for their own greed. That had built a tourist park on humanity's grave. "All ships," Kyung-soo ordered, his voice cold as the void. "Prepare to engage. No warnings, no mercy. Let them feel what Earth felt." The human fleet dropped out of quantum fold space directly over the Drethak homeworld. Council sensors, which had shown empty space a second before, suddenly registered hundreds of massive warships appearing from nowhere. The impossible had become real. Humanity had returned, and they had brought war. The Drethak home fleet reacted immediately when human ships appeared in their space. 200 warships moved to defensive positions around the planet. Their commander, Admiral Vresh, had fought many battles and won them all. He saw the human fleet and calculated his chances. 200 ships against hundreds of unknowns. The odds were uncertain, but he had the advantage of defending his homeworld. He was wrong about everything. Admiral Kyung-soo did not waste time with demands or threats. The human fleet opened fire immediately. Reality fracture weapons tore through space itself, reaching through the Drethak shields as if they were not there. Enemy ships simply came apart, their hulls fracturing along impossible angles. Energy shields designed to stop plasma and missiles did nothing against weapons that attacked matter at the quantum level. The Drethak fired back desperately. Plasma beams and missile swarms filled the space between fleets. But human shields converted incoming energy into antimatter that exploded outward, destroying anything that came close. The missiles never even reached their targets, detonating uselessly against quantum barriers. In 15 minutes, the entire Drethak home fleet was destroyed. Not damaged, not defeated, destroyed. 200 ships reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Admiral Vresh died still trying to understand how his shields had failed. He never got an answer. Kyung-soo targeted the orbital stations next, massive structures that housed millions of Drethak civilians and military personnel. These stations had defended the homeworld for thousands of years. They fell in minutes, torn apart by weapons that made physics itself a weapon. Then Kyung-soo did something unexpected. He stopped. The human fleet could have destroyed the planet, could have burned the surface like Earth had burned. Instead, Kyung-soo broadcast a message to the surviving Drethak on the surface. Your empire demanded Earth's destruction based on lies. You built monuments celebrating genocide. You profited from our death. We could erase you as you erased us. We will not. Humanity is better than the Council, but justice demands payment. The terms were simple and harsh. Every Drethak colony would surrender their weapons. Every Drethak military ship would be disabled. And every Drethak would spend the next 1,000 years rebuilding Earth's solar system, stone by stone, city by city, ocean by ocean, using the historical records humanity had preserved. It was not revenge. It was justice. And it was mercy, though the Drethak would spend centuries wondering if death might have been kinder. The news of the Drethak's defeat reached the Council within hours. Emergency sessions were called. The current supreme arbitrator, a being called Tholves, ordered total military mobilization. Every Council warship was recalled from the frontier. Every species with a military was told to prepare for war. The Council had thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of trained soldiers, advanced technology refined over millennia. Tholves was confident that whatever primitive survivors existed could be handled with overwhelming force. The Drethak had been overconfident and paid for it, but the full might of the Council was different. Admiral Kresh was given command of the Council's response fleet. 100 battle groups, each containing dozens of ships. It was the largest military force the Council had assembled in 1,000 years. Surely it would be enough. The fleets met near the Sagittarius Arm in neutral space far from any inhabited worlds. Kresh arranged his forces in a defensive sphere formation, a classic tactic that had won countless battles. He waited for the humans to approach, ready to envelop them with superior numbers. The human fleet did not approach. They appeared. One moment, Kresh's sensors showed empty space ahead. The next moment, hundreds of human ships existed in multiple locations at once, surrounding the Council formation from all directions simultaneously. Kyung-soo had learned from history. Humanity's ancestors died because they fought fairly against an unfair enemy. He would not make that mistake. His ships used quantum fold technology to attack from impossible positions. They fired weapons that traveled backwards through time, hitting Council ships before the trigger was pulled. The battle was chaos. Council ships fired at targets that were not really there. Human ships that appeared destroyed would suddenly reappear undamaged, having existed in parallel timelines. Weapons that should have missed curved through space to find their targets. The laws of physics that the Council understood had been rewritten by human desperation. Kresh's fleet fought bravely. They destroyed some human ships, proving that humanity was not invincible. But for every human ship that fell, 50 Council ships were torn apart. The sphere formation collapsed into confusion. Battle groups lost contact with each other. Ships collided with their own allies, trying to avoid human attacks from impossible angles. In 6 hours, it was over. The largest military force in Council history was destroyed. Only a handful of Council ships escaped to report what had happened. Admiral Kresh died when his flagship was cut in half by a reality fracture weapon. His last thought was that the Council had created their own doom when they murdered Earth. The Council government panicked. Species began withdrawing from the alliance, afraid of being targeted next. The Vorath Confederacy, one of the strongest military powers, declared neutrality. Others begged for peace talks. The Council that had ruled for thousands of years was falling apart in days. Tholves made a desperate decision. Deep in the core worlds, protected by layers of security, was the Council's ultimate weapon. The planet-killer Veltharis, named after the arbitrator who had condemned humanity. It was the same type of ship that had destroyed Earth 3,000 years ago. The massive dreadnought was activated for the first time in millennia. It was enormous, the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that could crack planets apart. Tholves himself took command, determined to end this threat once and for all. The Veltharis moved toward human positions, broadcasting on all frequencies. Surrender now or face total destruction. You cannot defeat this ship. Nothing can. Commander Jihai volunteered before Kyung-soo could even ask. She was young, barely 30, but her file showed she was one of the best pilots in the fleet. More importantly, she had lost her entire family when Earth burned. This was personal for her. Her ship was small, a single-pilot craft called the Final Witness. It was fast and packed with enough explosives to level a city, but it was not the explosives that made it dangerous. It was the Singularity Core, a miniature black hole contained in magnetic fields. If released, it would consume everything nearby. Jihai activated her quantum fold drive and jumped, not to a position near the Veltharis, but inside it. The human ship appeared in the center of the massive dreadnought, having passed through the hull by existing in a dimension where solid matter did not exist. Thulves had 1 second to realize what was happening before Jihai released the Singularity Core. The black hole expanded, consuming the Veltharis from the inside. The massive ship collapsed inward, crushed by gravity so intense that light could not escape. Jihai died instantly, her consciousness ending before she could feel pain. The Veltharis vanished in a flash of exotic radiation. The ultimate weapon, destroyed by one human who was willing to sacrifice everything. When the light faded, there was nothing left. Just empty space and the memory of a warrior who died ensuring her people's survival. Kyung-soo stood on his bridge in silence. Around him, his crew wept. Jihai had been popular, known for her terrible jokes and her amazing cooking. She would never tell another story. Never laugh at another sunrise. She was gone. One more name on the endless list of humans who died because the council feared success. Broadcast this to every council world, Kyung-soo ordered. Show them what happened. Show them that their ultimate weapon is gone. Show them that humanity will pay any price to ensure justice. And tell them we are coming to the core worlds. They can surrender or they can die. We no longer care which. The message spread through council space. Fear spread with it. The council that had erased humanity now faced erasure themselves. And the universe watched to see if justice could be found in the ashes of genocide. The colony ship drifted through absolute darkness for 300 years. Out here, between galaxies, there were no stars, no light, no hope except what the survivors carried inside them. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of the journey. Systems failed and were repaired. People were born, lived, and died without ever seeing a sun. Soman lived long enough to see the sensors detect something impossible. A rogue planet drifting alone through the void. It was massive, with a rocky surface and an atmosphere held in place by its own gravity, despite having no star to orbit. The scientists called it a miracle. Soman called it home. The landing was rough. The colony ship was never meant to land on a planet, but they had no choice. It came down in pieces, controlled crashes across a barren plain. Amazingly, most people survived. They stood on solid ground for the first time in 3 centuries and named their new world Seihope. New Hope. June was born in the first city they built from the ship's remains. He grew up hearing stories about Earth, about blue skies and green forests and oceans that stretched forever. He learned about the Galactic Council and what they had done. His teachers made sure every child knew the truth. Humanity had been murdered not because they were evil, but because they were feared. The early years on Seihope were hard. They had to build everything from scratch. Food came from underground farms lit by artificial suns. Water came from melting ice they found deep below the surface. The air was thin and cold, but they learned to survive. Humans always learned to survive. June became an engineer like Soman had been. His job was to study the technology humanity had brought from Earth and improve it. The Council's technology, too, from the ships they had captured during the last battle. Every piece of alien tech was taken apart, understood, and made better. Humanity had time, centuries of time to learn and grow stronger. By the time June had children of his own, Seihope had changed. The population had grown to millions. Cities spread across the planet's surface, lit by fusion reactors that turned darkness into light. And in orbit, the shipyards were building something new, something the Council had never seen before. Hana was June's granddaughter. She became a historian, dedicated to preserving the memory of Earth. She built the memory halls, massive structures filled with holographic displays showing Earth as it had been. Every city, every mountain, every ocean was recorded there. Children walked through recreations of Paris and Tokyo and New York, places that existed now only as ghosts. But the memory halls also showed the end. The burning, the death, the Council's ships raining fire on a defenseless world. Hana made sure no one ever forgot what had been taken from them. Vengeance became more than a desire. It became a culture, a religion, a promise passed from parent to child across generations. The technology advanced quickly. Without the Council's rules limiting what they could research, human scientists explored ideas that would have been forbidden. They modified their own genetics to survive in harsh environments. Some humans could breathe thin air. Others could withstand radiation that would have killed their ancestors. Cybernetic implants became common, linking human minds directly to computers. The most important breakthrough came from a scientist named Daehyun. He discovered quantum fold technology, a way to manipulate reality itself. Ships using this technology could exist in multiple places at once. Weapons could fire backwards through time. Shields could turn energy into antimatter. It was physics the Council had never dreamed of because they had never needed to dream. They were comfortable. Humanity was desperate. Daehyun became fleet commander as the shipyards produced the first Revenant-class warships. They were massive, larger than anything the Council had built. But size was not their advantage. These ships carried reality fracture weapons that could tear enemy vessels apart at the quantum level. They could jump across space without using predictable jump points. They were ghosts that killed. 1,000 years after the landing on Seihope, humanity was ready. Not ready to ask for justice, not ready to beg for recognition, ready to take what was owed in blood and fire. President Yoonji addressed the assembled fleet from the bridge of the Eternal Witness. Behind her, through the windows, hundreds of Revenant warships hung in space like dark promises. 10 million people lived on Seihope now, and millions more on colony stations throughout the dark between galaxies. They had built an empire in the void. Yoonji spoke clearly. Our ancestors were murdered for the crime of being successful. The Galactic Council erased humanity because we dared to thrive. They thought we were gone. They thought they could forget. But we survived. We grew strong, and now we will remind them that humanity does not die so easily. The vote was taken. Every human old enough to understand cast their choice. The result was unanimous. They would return to the Milky Way. They would find the Council. And they would collect payment for Earth's death. Not in apologies or treaties. In justice. But justice meant different things to different people. Some wanted total war, the complete destruction of every Council species. Others wanted only the guilty to pay. Yoonji made the final decision. They would be better than the Council. They would not commit genocide, but they would make sure the truth was known and the debt was paid. The preparation took 10 more years. Ships were built. Weapons were tested. Soldiers were trained. Intelligence probes were sent ahead to the Milky Way to gather information. What they found was both encouraging and infuriating. The Council had grown lazy. 3,000 years of peace had made them weak. Their technology had barely advanced. Their military was designed to police primitive species, not fight a real war. And humanity? Humanity had been erased from their history. Earth was remembered only as a footnote, a dangerous species that was regrettably eliminated for galactic safety. The Drethak Empire, the species that had accused humanity of crimes, had turned Earth's solar system into a tourist attraction. They charged admission for aliens to visit the ruins and see what happened to species that threatened galactic peace. It was the final insult that made even the most peaceful humans rage. On the day of departure, Hana stood in the memory halls one last time. She was old now, kept alive by technology that extended human life far beyond natural limits. She looked at the hologram of Earth, beautiful and blue and dead. Tears ran down her weathered face. "We are coming home," she whispered to the ghosts. "We are bringing justice, and we are bringing war." The fleet activated their quantum fold drives. Reality twisted and bent around them. The darkness between galaxies was ripped apart as hundreds of human warships jumped across impossible distances. They were heading back to the Milky Way, back to the Council, back to make sure humanity was never forgotten again. 3,000 years of exile had changed humanity. They were no longer the naive species that had joined the Council with hope and trust. They were harder now, colder, more dangerous. They had learned the universe's cruelest lesson in the worst way possible. Trust is weakness, mercy is foolishness, and the only way to ensure survival is to make your enemies fear you more than death itself. The human fleet emerged from the void like ghosts returning from the grave. They had come back, and the galaxy would never be the same. The morning sun rose over Earth like it had done for billions of years, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Commander Minho stood at the observation deck of Orbital Station 7, watching the planet below with pride. 200 years had passed since humanity made first contact with alien life. 200 years of peace, trade, and growth among the stars. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and that made all the difference. Minho sipped his coffee and smiled as supply ships moved between the station and the planet's surface. Mars colonies were thriving. The outer settlements in the Jupiter system were sending back reports of successful mining operations. Humanity had finally become a true spacefaring species, and they were good at it. The Galactic Council had welcomed them with open arms, or at least that's what everyone believed. The alarm shattered the peaceful morning. Red lights flooded the observation deck as sensors detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Minho dropped his coffee and ran to the command center. His heart pounded in his chest as the screen showed something impossible. Hundreds of ships. Massive, powerful warships that belonged to the Galactic Council. They were not here for a friendly visit. Down on Earth, Ambassador G1 received an urgent transmission in the middle of the night. Her hands shook as she read the message. The Galactic Council was coming to Earth, and they were bringing charges against humanity. Serious charges. Accusations of aggressive expansion, of contaminating worlds with human biology, of threatening the peace of the galaxy. None of it made sense. Humanity had followed every rule, every guideline the Council had given them. She dressed quickly and rushed to the United Earth Government headquarters. Other ambassadors and leaders were already there, their faces pale with worry. The Council's supreme arbitrator would arrive in 6 hours. They had 6 hours to prepare a defense for crimes they didn't commit. The arbitrator's ship appeared in Earth's orbit like a dark moon. It was enormous, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Veltharis, the supreme arbitrator, was a being of living crystal that reflected light in strange patterns. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Cold, final, absolute. G1 stood before the arbitrator in the council chamber they had set up in orbit. Behind her, through the massive windows, Earth turned peacefully. She presented evidence, testimony, records of every human action in space. Everything was done by the rules. Every expansion was approved. Every colony was built on lifeless rocks. There was no contamination, no aggression, no threat. The arbitrator listened in silence. When G1 finished, Veltharis showed the council's evidence. Reports from the Drethak Empire claiming human colonies were spreading dangerous bacteria. Testimony from the Voreth saying humans were preparing for war. Data that showed human ships in restricted zones. All of it was false. All of it was lies. But the council believed what they wanted to believe. G1 realized the truth in that moment. This was not a trial. This was an execution dressed up as justice. The Drethak wanted Earth's strategic position in this part of the galaxy. The other species feared humanity's rapid growth. They had decided Earth was a problem and problems had solutions. The vote came swiftly. 46 species voted yes, only 2 voted no. Humanity was found guilty of crimes against galactic peace. The sentence was sterilization. Every human would die. Earth would be cleansed. The solar system would be marked as a forbidden zone for 10,000 years. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo received the verdict aboard the flagship Indomitable. He looked at his officers, saw the fear in their eyes, and made his decision. They would fight. Not because they could win, but because humanity deserved to die standing up. The battle began at dawn. Earth's defense fleet, 300 ships strong, rose to meet the Council armada. Hyunwoo knew they were outmatched. The Council had thousands of ships, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand nuclear fire. But humans had something else. They had courage born from desperation. The space above Earth turned into hell. Human ships darted between the massive Council dreadnoughts, firing everything they had. Some Council ships fell, torn apart by human weapons, but for every Council ship that died, 10 human ships were destroyed. The orbital stations were the first to fall. Minho watched his crew die around him as plasma fire melted through the hull. His last act was to evacuate the civilians to the escape pods before the station exploded. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and saw their doom arriving. The Council ships broke through the defense fleet and entered the atmosphere. Cities that had stood for thousands of years vanished in white fire. Oceans boiled. Mountains melted. Forests burned. Billions of people died in minutes. Hyunwoo's ship was the last one fighting. The Indomitable had lost its engines, half its weapons, and most of its crew. But Hyunwoo kept firing. kept fighting, kept making the council pay for every inch of space. As his ship began to break apart, he recorded one final message and sent it on every frequency humanity had ever used, broadcasting it into the deep darkness between stars. This is Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo of Earth. If any human hears this message, know that we fought. Know that we were not criminals. Know that the council murdered us not because we were evil, but because we were successful. Remember us, survive, and one day when you are strong enough, come back. Make them pay. Make them remember that humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. The Indomitable exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from the outer solar system. Hyunwoo died with his ship, the last defender of a dying world. But not all humans died that day. Far beyond the orbit of Pluto in the frozen darkness of the Kuiper Belt, a mining colony watched everything happen. Chief Engineer Soman stood in the command center, tears streaming down her face as Earth burned on the screens. 50,000 people lived in this colony, 50,000 souls who had just watched their entire species die. Someone suggested they surrender. Maybe the council would show mercy. Soman knew better. She had seen what the council did to species they decided were threats. There would be no mercy. There would be no second chances. If they stayed, they would die. The colony had something secret, an experimental engine that could travel faster than anything the council had. It was dangerous, untested, and might kill them all, but staying here would definitely kill them. Salman gave the order. They would run, not back toward the galaxy and the council's hunting fleets, but away, out into the darkness between galaxies where no one would ever find them. They would take with them everything that made them human, their culture, their knowledge, their memories, and their rage. The colony ship's engines powered up with a sound like reality tearing. 50,000 humans took one last look at their dead homeworld. Then they jumped into the void and disappeared, leaving behind nothing but ghosts and ashes. The council thought they had erased humanity from the universe. They were wrong. Humanity had survived, and survival was just the beginning.